Cool. Albany, New York. I'm from Kingston, New York. Um, so anyway, I see some familiar people and I see some new people, and that's awesome. And thanks to everybody. And I'll tell you up front what's happening, that this is um we have this year-long program. It's technically 9 months. It's like a college year. It starts in September and ends in May. Um, and we love to get people in it. And we love to teach people comics, and it's a really good program. And so I thought, maybe what if I condensed everything into 1 hour? And so I sort of did. And it's got a lot of things that I hope that you can actually take away and actually learn from. So I'm gonna just dig right in. Oh, look, and Arthur Starr, who actually took the program last year, is here, and he just can't get enough. Hey, Arthur. So I'm gonna dig in. I'm gonna share my screen, and any questions you have, probably best to raise your hand or put them in the chat and wait till the end. But if it's super urgent, you can raise your hand and wave your hands and stuff like that. Anyway, I'm going to share my screen. Thank you so much. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, here we go. There's Nikki waving her hand. Hi, Nikki. Okay. You know what? I'm going to change one option here for you all. Let's see. Oh, maybe I can't. There we go. Okay. All right. So voila. So this is what I call the Cell Comics Certificate Course Preview. It's 18 takeaways and it's an overview of our program. And I'll just dig right in. Welcome. This is one of the books we created. The course is nine different courses over the course of 9 months, but it's 3 at a time. And every course, or every quarter, there's 4 quarters. The 4th one is freeform. Every quarter has ideas and storytelling, and it also has a drawing component, and it also has a comics and context component. And that can mean history, but that can also mean reading comics, and it can also mean like, what is art about anyway, and stuff like that. In the quarter 1, September through October, the courses are called Storytelling, Drawing for Comics, and the Hidden History of Comics. Then we have the Ideas and Vision, Depth and Details, Modern Comics Exploration. And then in January through March, these 3, Comics Frontiers, Finishing Decisions, and Practice. Actually, it's Markets, Art, and Practice now. And I'll explain what those are, and I'll give you takeaways from every single course right now. But what you don't get in this limited preview is the chance to be together, the chance to learn together, to learn with our mentors. This is a photo from our real saw space in Gainesville, Florida. And you'll have access to this, and you can read more about it, about how just crucial it is to learn with others. And that's coming up too. So I'm just going to dig in. Storytelling. This course, excuse me, is designed to get you thinking about how story works and how pictures that tell stories work. And it starts with, here's our first takeaway. The first takeaway is narrative image is something that shows something happening in the present, but it also implies the past or future. So what does that mean? These are pictures. This is a nice painting of some flowers from Van Gogh. This is a character design from Miyazaki. I think it's from Kiki's Delivery Service, but it might be another one. But neither of these are narrative images, in that they don't move a story forward. This moves the story forward. And I know it's gruesome and I know it's intense, but it's an extreme version of what we're talking about. It's got something going on in the present. This boy is holding this head, but it also implies the past, what happened. And I think it invokes the past more than the future. The future, you definitely wonder what might happen next, but it's way more embedded in the past. And all sort of good narrative images do that. And we start in the course by looking at somebody who did that really well, which is Gary Larson during The Far Side. There's a great image. And honestly, in a lot of ways, it does the same thing that image does, which is give us a moment that we're looking at this dog looking at the end of his leash. And from there, we see so much of the past. And, because we have the cultural touchstones, we know what's going on and what happened. We can put that together. And there's a little bit of the future. And so Gary Larson played around with that as well. But here's another version of that. There's actually not much happening in the present here. It's all us piecing together details from the past. But here's another one of him giving us the present, which is this cat staring into a washing machine, or is that the dryer? The dryer, and the dog, saying, oh, please, oh, please. So here he's giving us the present tense and evoking the future. And that's super exciting as well. And I always bring out this image, which I guess at this point is about 8 years old or 7 or something. And as just something that is just utterly has all three. It's like utterly present. The past is completely in question, and you're curious about how it got there, and you're also devastatingly interested in what's going to happen next. Real history is told with story and the same kind of storytelling, the same kind of building blocks that we work with. So takeaway one, again, a narrative image shows something happening in the present, but implies the past or the future. I'll give you a handout at the end of all 18 takeaways. But writing them down is super cool too, if you want to do that. Anyway, I'm racing through it. Takeaway two. And you know what? I realized doing it last time that it's fun to skip to the end. How you arrange a page helps tell the story. So that's takeaway two. And we'll start here by showing you some examples. And I'm going to enlarge this if I can. Yeah, there we go. So this is a great page by Will Eisner. It's a simple page. It's 5, 6, 7 panels. Hey, mama, give me a nickel. What for? The merry-go-round man is coming here. Mom, give me my cowboy hat. Cowboy hat falls down, and then he runs off to this merry-go-round man. This is the Bronx or the Lower East Side, back probably in the 30s or something. And the great thing here about this page is the kids live in this horizontal world, this low world that doesn't have a lot of height to them. It's the size of them. It's like 3 feet high or something. When they want to engage with the adults, they have to do it in these tall panels because the adults are floors up in their tenements. And I just love that it's so simple. When after this sort of like a negotiation of 5 panels happens in the tall panels, the kid goes back into the kid world, races across from left to right into the staying in the kid world off to the merry-go-round man. It's super cool. And when you start to know how those things work, you start to see it everywhere. Calvin and Hobbes was great at this. These are basically, we're looking at 3 separate sections here. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are really ordinary page panels. These first 4, they're sort of squarish, a little tall. They're right next to each other. They're repeated, and Calvin is in the exact same place and stuff like that. And so, but it's a frustrating situation for Calvin. He's not getting what he wants out of that. So it changes. And you get these tiny panels, which is this quick transition that brings us to the last section of this comic, of this Sunday panel or page, which is one single enormous panel of Calvin's imagination. And it's just a great example, again, of using like simple page storytelling elements to tell the story. It's a great use of that. And there's all sorts of ways to play with it. I'll show you this page a little later. This is Osamu Tezuka. It's a spiral. It's kind of crazy. And things like that work, and learning how to use them really is important and can be really thrilling. So that's takeaway 2. How you arrange a page helps tell the story. And that's the end of the storytelling section. What's missing from the storytelling preview is time through the panels. We talk about time. We look at telling stories silently, excuse me, and we talk about story structure. And of course, what's missing is you in the network, learning with others, and being a part of the whole process of learning and being really engaged. So that's one. Drawing for comics is the next thing we do. And we start with gestures. And I'm going to skip ahead just like I did last time. Takeaway 3. The gesture is the building block, the basic building block of a narrative image. So in this, we talk about what gestures are, and you can kind of see them best. I'm going to go backwards a little bit and show them here. Again, it's Will Eisner. Let's open that page panel up. These actions that are easy to see, especially here, you can see these sort of 2 people on ice skates holding each other and but also spinning away from each other at the same time. When you can create that in a simple gesture, I'm going to show you one more. Wait, Oh, here it is. Um, oh, that one's not enlarging. When you can um, when you can capture it in a simple gesture that is immediately understandable from a distance, like in this silhouette, for instance, you can start to create narrative images that read over and over and over again and start to create a story that has some length to it and can continue on for a while because you're using these building blocks. And so in this drawing class, our drawing teacher, his name is Sydney. He's a wild, interesting guy with a lot of depth, and he really has a lot of storytelling um, and a lot of humanity and storytelling interests. But mostly he talks about drawing, and we draw from photos, and he shows you how to sort of locate the important parts of the body in order to create those gestures. And in the course, you'll see me and you'll see some other people's, some of the other instructors sort of talk about the struggles that they have, or even just the challenges they have in trying to locate the gestures that will communicate quickly and instantly. So that's takeaway 3. The gesture is the building block of narrative images. So our 4th takeaway is, and I'm going to scroll to the end, where you place characters in the panel helps tell the story as well. So we call that composing your shots or composing your panels. And to some degree, it's also about lighting. All sorts of things come into this. And as an example, I have these 3 characters in this car, and I just sort of playfully show you that we really don't know what this is. It seems to be an argument, but as we start to play around with where these characters are, this is the same characters, but in here now things are starting to be in focus. We've got 2 characters up front. Well, I'm calling the car a character, the woman in the car, and the guy is saying, I want to take her away from all this. So the narrative becomes kind of concrete now. He's talking about her. She is dreaming. We start to imagine, we already start to put some things together. She's starting to imagine getting out of here, et cetera, et cetera. But there are other ways to play around with this. Here, she is walking into the car. The boyfriend or whatever he is sort of like gesturing, and she's saying, I'm worried about your dad. But notice that, like, even, and I'll enlarge this picture too, even though they're in front and talking, he's actually a little bit more the story because we've evoked him in the balloon, but also he's lit, he's brighter, he's higher contrast, and he's also looking off to the distance, like, and we're wondering, wow, what's he going to do? Where's he going to wander off to? So how you light a panel, how you compose a panel really is part of the story. And so that's takeaway 4. Where you place the characters helps tell the story. And again, we'll go to what's missing, which is faces and expressions. We talk at length about emotion and getting that on the face. We talk about perspective, which is a bit of a monster. Everyone hates it, but we try and make it fun, and we do, I think. And then compositions, which is a little different than, or it's actually just deeper than what I just showed you. You can actually just talk about the shapes of things and how they evoke some sort of subconscious things in readers. So that's a little bit of what's missing. So we'll go to our 5th takeaway from Hidden History of Comics comes from Rob Clow. He's an old critic and historian of comics, and he's very, very, very forward thinking. He's also a publisher, and he's interested in getting all voices out there. And that's our 5th, I think we're on 5. That's our 5th takeaway, which is you have a place in comics history and it's there for you to create. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that course. That is about one thing he covers is distribution and how it's always been this kind of thing that you see parodied in The Simpsons, where it's this off-putting comic store which you're not allowed into, or if you're not already in the know, you might get mocked when you walk in and things like that. And there's been this long history of that. There's also a long history of head shops and places where you sort of had to sort of hide your comics or go find the good ones that you wanted. And slowly comics are becoming more mainstream. Take Raina Telgemeier, they've become mainstream, let's say. Raina Telgemeier, for instance, had 4 of the top 5 best-selling comics at one point a couple years ago in the top 5. Kids comics have really come to the fore. Fun Home was a very major graphic novel and became a Broadway play and a hit and all sorts of things. And so things are changing. And if as we begin to understand comics history, we can sort of make a place in it for ourselves. And we can understand even just where we fit in. That's sort of takeaway 5. And that's everything we do from September to October. So let's go to the second quarter. I'm doing good on time. This runs roughly mid-October to middle of December. And we go further into a little deeper into storytelling, a little deeper into visuals, and we get a little more modern in our context class. So my class, I always teach the storytelling courses. My class is called Ideas and Vision. And I started with something which seems simple, but I find it so interesting and deep. It's called Your Visual Pulse. And I have us, oh wait, I'm going to skip away to the takeaway and then I'll come back to it because that seems to be working. There we go. Takeaway 6. Who you are can, as an artist, should be a comma there, be located by what you're compelled to look at. I know that sounds kind of a little bonkers, but what I mean is when we start to like notice what we like looking at it comes back to us and it starts to inform what we do. So what I have us do is sort of just draw faces, but draw faces that locate faces in comics that we like, that we are compelled to. And these are the ones that I did when I did this exercise. All of these is sort of trying to create this pulse between our who we are, what we're drawn to. It's like, as human beings and as social creatures, we're drawn to other faces. And so I start there. What comic faces, what cartoon faces, what drawn faces are you drawn to in the other use of the word? Even that Garfield is very personally to me compelling. I can't stop looking at old Garfield. New Garfield, not as much. And then we sort of spend a little time recreating those drawings. And what do we see when we stare at that face again and sort of make it with our hands? And it's a simple thing that gets us into the second quarter. Who you are as an artist can be located by what you're compelled to look at. It just gets us going into it a little bit. The next one is much deeper. I call it storytelling vinyasa, and it is a way of finding story from nothing. And the takeaway is every artist can have a method that will let ideas that they believe in at I'm gonna mute. There we go, somebody. And so how that works is I created this system that works every single time for me anyway, where we make a list. And so for instance, we start with the simplest things. What's distracting you? That's like number 1 on the list. So we're not forcing ourselves to be in like artist mode right away. Instead, what are we distracted by? What are we daydreaming about? Things like that. What's happening in our body? And if you ever had a bad job, write it down and stuff like that. And then from there, so we make this list and it looks like this. And again, you'll have access to this and I'll give you access at the end of the workshop. And from there, we do a bunch of doodles. And the good thing about that is we in this process, we write, then we draw, then we write, then we draw, then we write, then we draw. And one of the reasons is we outpace the inner critic, who usually the inner critic, by about the time you get finished with one part, starts to understand what you're doing and starts to tell you that you're bad at it and you should stop. But then we're doing something else and it gets a little confused. At least I found that. And so in doing this process of writing and then drawing, and then we write again and we do some list making from a narrative image that we've created. It's just like what we talked about in the first section. We create this narrative image and then we create some possible worlds or some possible variations on it. And from there, we start to build out a story and it works every time. And it's really interesting and it comes from nothing. And everybody's like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened out of nowhere. And it doesn't really come out of nowhere. It's just that we had a method of sitting down and finding something. So that's the takeaway for 7. Every artist can have a method that they believe to create ideas that they believe in. And anyway, what's missing? We do some exercises in drawing objects that resonate for us. and creating characters. And we talk about, and storytelling vinyasa continues. It's a 2-week course. And we talk about, excuse me, note keeping and keeping a store of drawings and ideas about you so that we always have stuff to work with. And again, what's missing also is you in the network and learning together with other people. So our next course is called Depth and Details. In some ways, I think it's our best course, or at least it's maybe the deepest in what it will convey and how it sometimes changes people's lives. And it's taught by Justine Mara Anderson, who's worked for DC and Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons and all these things. And what she starts to do is to show you how even the most complicated scenes visually, she's talking about depth, are built up in layers. And so in looking at this painting, for instance, from the Hudson River School, I forget the name of that painter, she breaks it down into little sections, little layers, section 1, section 2, layer all the way. So now she's on layer 6, now she's on layer 13, and she shows you that these paintings, as complicated as they are, can be really broken down into little sections, kind of like a ViewMaster. And when you can grasp onto that, you can use it for your own purposes. And here's another example. She also talks about how to draw that in black and white, if that's something you're interested in. And that brings us to takeaway 8. Pictures that feel real, should have another comma, have space in them, and they can be created with simple layers of depth. Justine also takes us through some pieces. This is one of her drawings she did for Lucasfilm. Again, it shows lots of depth and things, but she shows us a piece that she did piece by piece, and she shows us this little junkyard that this character is a part of. She shows us how she researched every single little part of it. It's one drawing, but these cans had some research elements to it. These bottles did, this rebar. And she looks and she shows you, like, how do you draw rebar close up? How do you draw it when it's a little bit farther away? How can I keep this so it's clear? And she guides you just through all that through one drawing. And the takeaway there is that it's fun to research, and the specifics and the details, if you get into them, they will communicate instantly to your readers, and they create this realistic world that the reader can get into. And so what's missing from this preview? A lot. It says Justine, a little bit like myself, but more so, is a bit of a maximalist. So she throws a lot at you in and helps you sort through it and sort of understand what the potential is in creating realistic looking worlds. In modern comics exploration, this is the 3rd part of the 2nd quarter. Ayani Cooper is our instructor, and she teaches it's modern comics, and she just teaches it from a bunch of different angles. The history comics in the first section taught it from a bunch of different angles, and the new comics that Ayani teaches are from a bunch of different angles too. Week 1 is autobiographical comics. Week 2, she might change it year after year, is sort of newspaper comics and how they have evolved. Week 3 is combating marginality and bringing other voices to comics. Week 4 is about sci-fi in some ways, drawing space and time, but it's also about, well, space and time, but she starts with sci-fi. Web comics is week 5, and how manga has influenced the culture is week 6. So for instance, in combating marginality, do we have a picture here? No, but the takeaway 9 is that new voices are allowed in comics, and we explore them in the class, and we welcome yours, and we really try and help everybody bring their own story into and realize that they have their context is unique, and it's allowed, and it's welcome. And so Ayani she has some essays that we read in addition to some comics that we read. Parts of Us by Chan Chow, Niev Sikar, who does Your Heart is an Apple, and there's a bunch more. So that was takeaway 9. So now I've forgotten. Anyway, what's missing is the ones I just mentioned, some of the specifics of the web comics and the autobiography. on a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden and stuff like that. And the discussions that Ayani has, we have live calls with myself on all Mondays alternating at 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. But in the second quarter, Ayani has her own calls just for the reading course. Those tend to be Thursdays, I think. It might change, but it's usually Thursdays. So that's the end of the calendar year. So that brings us to sort of the new year. We take a couple of weeks off and then we start up our third quarter again in January to March. We're doing okay on time. Thanks for putting up with me speaking so quickly, everybody. And again, you know, I'll take a moment to put this in the chat. That's the program if you want to read more about it. So we'll move on. I think I just have to get my water. There we go. Hang on a second. Cool. So Comics Frontiers is the third quarter storytelling course. And this is where we just get a little bit, we go a little deeper into it, but also a little weirder, frankly. I try to show a bunch of ways in which we haven't thought about comics. And so I'll show you two. One I call You Can't Do This in the Movies. And it shows a bunch of different ways in which comics is sort of unique. It's not like a novel. It's not like a movie. It sort of can do these things on its own. And here's one example. We call it the polyptych or the pan. And so this character, you actually see her moving through these three panels, but otherwise this panel, or excuse me, the scene is stationary. Not even these characters are moving, but she moves through it. It's this bizarre handling of time that you can't really do. I mean, you kind of can actually in movies these days, the way they've sort of, since the Matrix, like they freeze time and stuff like that. But I think it's much more compelling on a page in comics, the way you would break out panel to panel to panel. So anyway, that's a great example, the pan. And it's also done in action comics quite a bit. So this is a character jumping, and that's a very heavily angled, but jumping down a building. Well, here goes. 1 and 2. Great uncle would probably deem this elementary, but I call it murder on the metatarsals. Anyway, but he's jumping through the scene is the same, the location is the same, and we see him moving through the space. And it just breaks up time. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's one variation on that. Another variation might be the way that this is 3 panels that are all one scene, but the fourth one breaks it, but it's also a zoom in of the first panel. Things like that are really playful ways in which you can play with the page design in ways that aren't just copying the way movies work or something like that. So I told you I'd show you this panel a little more closely. This is from Tezuka, and he was really the king of really unique page designs that were utterly unique to comics. This character is spinning himself into a circle as he's thinking about his mentor, director Tatsugara. He could never do such a terrible thing. And yet I wonder, why is it also hush hush? Asani vanishes without a trace. Dr. Tatsugara always avoided the topic. What if Dr. Tatsugara? And he's starting to wonder all these things about his mentor. And then it ends in the middle of the panel. Is something wrong? No, nothing. But he's like trapped. He's trapped in his own thoughts. He's trapped in his own worry. And again, it's like you can't really do that in a movie. It's super cool. So takeaway 11. So I guess we did 10 before that. Comics has tons of things you can't do in prose or the movies or anything. So that's takeaway 11. Takeaway, let's go to takeaway 12. Their photos are a different kind of narrative image. They arrest the viewer. They stop us in our tracks. They grab the attention in powerful ways that we can utilize. So another thing that we do in Comics Frontiers is we look at photo collage and photo comics, which have usually been laughed at. They've been thought of as illiterate and things like that. But the truth is it can be really interesting. And we show a lot of examples from modern comics like this Julie Doucet comic to the way in which the 70s and 80s brought a lot of, in America, brought a lot of movies and TV to people's houses via photo collage. And it's kind of interesting. Mira Jacob uses a mixture of photo collage and drawn photos to sort of confront the reader And then we look at the history of it a little bit. This is El Santo from the 1940s, I think, from Mexico, and was one of the earliest people to do photo comics. Um, and so we look at sort of the history and try it ourselves. So that's takeaway 12. Photos arrest the viewer, and they grab our attention. So, and again, what's missing is you, but also we look at rearranging panels to tell different stories. It's a super fun exercise. We look at different types of narration to create different feelings about the character, different psychologies, things like that. And we look at creating metaphor in really interesting, unique ways, that again are really unique to visual storytelling. And again, it's better when you're there. It's better with you learning with others, and that's how it all happens, is when we're in a group. The second to last course is called Finishing Decisions. It's by Lauren Weinstein, who is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant cartoonist. And she guides us through everything we think about, or we have to think about, when it's time to sort of like decide to make something. And she guides us through drawing things in pencil, drawing things in pen, drawing, painting things, working in digitally, and hybrid of those things. So we'll look at quickly finishing pencil, and what I'll do is I'll go to the takeaway 13. You can make comics in any medium. That's the takeaway. And what Lauren will show you is that even under a deadline, even a pencil in a sketchbook can become a comic that works, in a high level publication. So she went to the Women's March back in 2017, and did these in her sketchbook. They look like this. And then in did some quick edits in Photoshop, and then they turned out like this. And then she got it into the Village Voice just 2 days later. And it's all just pencil. And it's really, really interesting, beautiful story. And her work is really raw and energetic and interesting. So that's takeaway 13. You can make comics in any medium. Takeaway 14, we'll scroll ahead. Oh, wait. Oh, no. I think I've got numbering wrong, don't I, here? 12. I think this is takeaway 12, to be honest. And this is takeaway 13. Anyway, takeaway 13, you don't have to choose between analog and digital. And so Lauren shows us in a beautiful story called Mother's Walk, about giving birth. She shows in some ways how, let me click on this so that you can see it a little larger. You can see that this is drawn on graph paper. It's scraps of paper, but she's also some of this stuff, it's not hastily done. She just is doing it on rough paper because she knows that she can incorporate it later into the sort of photo editing digital world that she's going to be working in. And so here it is, one section later, and then that's it before. Whoops. Let's close that out and I'll show you the final edit of that. And so the final edit is this mixture, oh, interesting, of digital text, digital balloons, analog drawings, and everything sort of like collaged together. And there's some of that stuff, with a lot of things working in complicated ways. But by now, this is a little more simple, but by now we're pretty far into the course, and it's actually within our reach to actually work in these methods. So takeaway 13, you don't have to choose between analog and digital, and other things that Lauren shows you, because she's such a broad artist. She shows you more about painting, working in ink, and digital only. It's a remarkable book that she did completely digitally, and we'll show you that as well, and how to do it. I'll put this again in the chat. That's the preview page, or the full program. The last actual course where we are talking and answering questions is called Markets, Art, and Practice. And we it's about where we fit in, how who we are, what brought us here. Some of the stuff, it's mostly a discussion course. It mostly is ways to get us talking before we sort of go off into the rest of our lives, you know, the rest of the world. We ask we ask ourselves what our origin is, what our origin story is, what brought us here to art, what kept us away from art for a while, if that happened. And we investigate a lot of other ideas about making art. And the takeaway here, 14, the story of you as an artist will give you direction, and we help you find that direction and help you even find that narrative. By now, the story, to some degree, is about you as well. The next section is life after school, how to maintain a comics community, and how to move through life after school. And again, it's a lot of reading, it's a lot of sharing anecdotes, it's a lot of discussion of bookmaking and festivals and community building and things like that. And it always winds up with some endpoints like this with Kristen Kowal. Sold my first comic. I went to Portland, went to a bookstore and asked them to sell my books, and they did. We talk about freelancing, we talk about all sorts of things. The important thing, I think, the takeaway there is that we make things to share. And the main focus of this of Markets, Art, and Practice is like what are we doing and how do we share it? So that's takeaway 16. And what's missing in this preview? It just says there's so much more. We especially want to see what you have to say, and we want to help you stitch together with others that the things that in the long run are going to sort of help you move forward. So that's the end of the third quarter. The fourth quarter, which is March through May, is when we put you into little groups, because the first 3 quarters were a pretty big group, but we really get to know each other. But we put you in littler groups, and we give you a single mentor, and we give you about 12 or 15 weeks, but you work with the mentor for 6 weeks on a final assignment. And that final assignment is a 6-page comic. It's free form. It's like taking what you've already known or what you've worked with and letting yourself make something now. And we get a lot of great feedback. And this is a great example. I've submitted my assignment. Thank you, Georgia Weber. She was one of the mentors, my teammates for continuous feedback. It's amazing to see different styles of work. I've learned so much from this program, and I'm going to miss it. And the takeaway is that we work best in groups, supporting each other, inspiring each other, holding each other accountable, but also seeing our best selves. All of that is something we do in this last quarter where we're working together on a small project. I'll show you some more testimonials. Arthur could even be in here. I'm not sure. Guess I'll find out. Thank you, Tom Hart, Rob Klaus, Cindy Davidson. That's quarter 1 for the great lessons. Ellen says, Rob, thank you so much. You help us not to just read and draw, but to think. Thanks for guiding us along. Quarter 2. Thank you so much. I'm pretty overwhelmed with how important and valuable it's been to create this and surrounded by such an incredible community. Every comment's made me think deeper about every decision I've taken, made me more confident about the story. Third quarter, Nicole says, this might be the hardest thing I've tried to do this program. That's saying something, but she's pretty happy about it, I think. Brendan says, thank you. That lecture about photos and incorporating them gave me permission to do something I'd only wondered about, and it felt like I was cheating, but now it turned out really great. And also in the third quarter, I can tell the instruction is kind of coming to a close because it's all coming together. That was a great comment, because that is part of the design, is that we want these things to be pulled together. And it happens sooner. Sometimes it happens later. It all sort of gels eventually if people have been really energetic about it. Oops, this is a picture. I finally created a comic about the mythology that I always wanted to. I'm so thankful. Thanks to the group. Thanks again for your patience. The program opened up a path for me to create in ways that feel more right than any creative expression has in a long time. Oh, that's really wonderful. This was from Instagram. It's a little small. I can't even read it. This program has changed my life. It's not an overstatement. Cool. We like that one. Amihan says, I'm so proud of myself for completing what I dreamed about and set out to learn when I first started for this program. We saw that from Nikita, and I'm still digesting this experience, so I'm lacking in words. Thank you to everybody. We work to create a final anthology. It looks like this. This is a couple years old. This is the 2021, I think, one. It's a big book of everyone's work. You can download it. I'll share this link, and I'll share a link to this whole preview. The final takeaways, you can do it. You can do this. You can make comics. You can make them communicate what you want to communicate. You can be part of a larger scene. You can be part of this book. You can be part of the culture that is comics, and you can be part of the creative force that is running through you and runs through everybody. I'm going to give this to you all later. We're only doing this for June. We have a 20% off coupon. It's kind of complicated, but actually, yeah. But I'll give you this in the chat and also in an email afterwards. But we're giving you a 20% off if you sign up in June. I think there's another handful of days. So 7:42, or at least 42 minutes after the hour, according to my clock. So I did okay. I was hoping to get done in under 45 minutes, and we just came in at 42. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'll take a look at the chat, but I'll take any questions that you might have. Let me stop sharing. Bless you, Nikki. Did you just sneeze? I don't know. Maybe she did. Hold on one moment, y'all. So anyway, okay, good. Oh, wait. I did something accidentally. Okay, there we go. Sorry, Zoom problems. So I'm here to answer questions if you have any, but that's what I wanted to share with you is, oh wait, you know what? I'm going to share one last thing because for some reason I didn't, and that's the 18 takeaways. Gotta find it. Isn't that funny? Oh, there it is. So this 18 takeaways is also a PDF. I'm going to copy the link address, but these are the takeaways: a narrative image, how you arrange a page, the gestures, the building block, where you place characters tells the story, and you have a place in comics history, etc., etc. This sale link and all of this are in this PDF, which I'll share in the chat now, but I wanted you to know that this little PDF of the 18 takeaways is yours as well. So let me just put that in the chat. Wow, big long URL, but I assume it'll work. If it doesn't work, let me know. Okay, stop sharing. Okay, cool. Great. All right, I'll look at the chat, but if anyone has any questions that they'd like to take into the they can raise their hand and I'll answer it that way, but let me look at the chat because I saw there were one or two. Why can't I find the chat? There's the chat. Okay. So I saw SD asks, what kind of prior experience do students usually come in with? It's a mixture, but we do get a lot of beginners. But it is a mixture. We'll occasionally get people who, like for instance, this year we had one person who was a children's book illustrator. She had already done work in the children's book world, but she wanted to learn comics, and I think she had a really great experience. She did great work, but she hadn't really done much in the storytelling vein. But we do get a ton of beginners, and guiding beginners through the basics of what tools they have to work with is really fun. And watching them make their first comics, a lot of times people have just been dreaming about it for a long time, and maybe they've missed out for a long time, or maybe they just got turned on to comics in the past couple of years and they're like, this is great, I got to try this. We're pretty well suited to take most levels of people. I think if there's a certain level you're at and you'd like to talk about it, be happy to talk about it here or in a direct message or anything like that, and be happy to answer that. But yeah, all sorts. And in fact, I don't know if Arthur's still on this call, but like I said, Arthur's taking it again. He's just finishing it right now, and he's like, I'm gonna take it next year. So I don't know what level he's at. Is he at the complete finished level, or is it, I don't know what to call it, something else. All right, I see some more questions in the chat, so I will. Yeah, there's Arthur in the chat. I was so amazing. I'm doing it again. Um, okay, so that was SD's question. So River says, how much of a time commitment is it? Would it be realistic for someone working full time to do? I'm going to share my screen one again to answer that question. I tried to do this last time I did this talk and I was like, where is it? But it's there. I just couldn't find it last week. So while that loads, I'm going to close some other tabs. So this is the actually I'm going to put this one. All right, enter that. All right. So I answer that question here, and I'm not being glib. I just don't remember exactly what we say, but the truth is, off the cuff, is a very predictable answer, which is that the more time you put in, the better it'll be for you. But we also know that we're creating it for busy people. So here's what we have two answers to that. We ask that students commit a minimum of 1.5 hours per class each week. Actually, even that's a little high. Uh, I might change that. That being said, this is comics. It's consuming a pursuit that's easy to get lost in. Um, let me answer this question. No, really, how much time do I have to put in? So here's what we say. For the 3 sessions, meaning the 3 courses that are happening week to week, about 2 to 4 hours a week of learning should get you through. And then about 1 to 3 hours a week of exercises, but those aren't mandatory. The exercises during the 6 weeks aren't mandatory. They're just like, do this, you'll deepen your experience, you'll get better. But we know that a lot of people skip some of them because they get busy. I'm in programs for other reasons and other media and stuff, and I know that you get busy and you have to skip things now and then. If you had 10 hours, if you had 10 hours a week to put in, you would do really, really well. But I know a lot of people don't, and maybe they've got 3 hours a week or something, or 4, and you can skate by with that little. But again, if you've got a lot of time, you'll get more out of it. The mandatory, however, what I wanted to say is that there are weekly assignment or exercises for every course. And again, those aren't mandatory, but what is mandatory is at the end of every quarter is a integration assignment where we ask you to do one assignment and you get 2 weeks to do it. That's mandatory. That 2 weeks is like, it's all, there's no other readings, there's no other presentations, and there's nothing else that we've got to get done, excuse me, except that single exercise or that single assignment. So so finding the time for that is usually pretty easy for people, and we have 1 or 2 calls where we talk about how it's going, and we encourage people along. So the answer really is as much as you can, but it's okay if you can't. And I'll stop sharing. I'll put this URL in the chat. Sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once. We do sometimes get it. Usually 1 or 2 people per year will start the course and maybe after 2 quarters, ask to come back in a year. So they'll be like, I think I'm in over my head. I did good in the first 2 quarters. Can I come back next year and take the third and fourth quarters? And we usually let people do that. There's always 1 or 2 people who've deferred because they just bit off more than they can chew, but they always come back and they always are happy and they get into the final anthology and stuff like that. So wait, is Arthur still here? Somebody's asking if it rained. Oh, he is still here. Arthur says I was a beginner when I started and I felt really supported. I'm glad to hear that. Beginner really Debbie, beginner means it could mean either writing or drawing, right? Or it can mean both. And we always say that, like, if you come wanting to learn, you can do it. And we firmly believe you can tell decent stories with stick figures, but we also think that we can teach you to draw the figure in slightly more ambitious ways than mere stick figures in the time we have together. And also, we also think you could get by just telling, one panel stories or one panel or two panel stories, but also we think that over time we can teach you to teach slightly longer stories that have maybe that utilize some of the what I want to say, some of the tools that of visual storytelling. Um, and we'll teach you how to do that. And so beginner can mean maybe you don't draw that well and you don't really know how comics works. We can teach you from there, I think. Anyway, Nikki says, glad you got to do the year long. Okay, et cetera, et cetera. Right, Jen asks, oh, Arthur says, never drew comics, my first class. Cool. Jen says, how much in the instruction is self-led, asynchronous, and how much is real time? If you had to guess percentage-wise. Okay, so Jen's question, that's a great question. Uh, how we run it is everything is a lot is duplicated. So we find that people work better with the asynchronous stuff on their own time. So on how it works is on Saturdays, 3 sections of new material get released, and it's again, it's the whatever storytelling class, whatever drawing class, and whatever context class, and it's a mixture of um, presentations in video usually, and PDFs and things like that. And then on Monday, we have a live call. It's either 2 p.m. Eastern or 8 p.m. Eastern, and it alternates. And I lead that call and I talk through the 3 sections that we've just released. And I usually walk us through piece by piece one of them. And in other words, we do the exercise on the call of one of them. We can't really do all 3 exercises on a single hour-and-a-half call. And take questions and stuff, but we usually do whatever is either the most complicated or the most beneficial by a group, by doing live as a group. So that's what we do. Cool, thanks. So that's the answer. Okay. Sean says this had a lot of great info, got a lot of questions about the class timing. What is the format for the weekly classes? Hopefully I just answered that. Is it pre-recorded or a Zoom call like this? Is there question and discussion during class, or is it pretty time? No, there's lots of time to chat and Q&A and stuff like that. So I hopefully, Sean, in answering Jen's question, I answered some of yours. Are the classes at the same time date every week, and how many times a week is it? So again, yeah, so throughout the year, it's Mondays alternating 2 p.m., 8 p.m. Eastern, and that's to sort of allow for multiple, lots of different time zones to come in. And then during the second semester, we have an additional call with Dr. Cooper. That's usually 8 p.m. and that's just to talk about the readings that they've done. All of these obviously are recorded and you have access to them, and you'll find that the community that we do a lot of the asynchronous work in is open all the time, and we're always available. The teachers are easy to grab hold of, with the exception of Justine, who's not so great at media at tech, but me and Rob and Ayani and Lauren are much more adept at it. Okay, let's see. Abby says, does it work if you're coming in with an already underway project, or do you think it's better to come in with a blank slate? That can go both either way. It depends on how dedicated you are to that project in the way that you've got it done. So like if you have an idea, let's just make something up. Okay, let's say Little Red Riding Hood. Let's say you're telling a story about a little girl who, let's do Hansel and Gretel, about a pair of siblings who get thrown out into the woods by their step parents and run into a witch. Okay, and maybe this idea has been circling in your head for a long time, but you haven't really done it. I think this project will give you a lot of great ways of telling it in different ways, and it'll let you explore the idea in a lot of different ways. And you might come out in the end, in that fourth quarter where you do your freeform project, it might help you really get a great grip on it and start it. if you're already doing a project and you know how it goes and you know how you want to tell it and you're already telling it, then you probably don't want this course and you probably want the graphic novel intensive that we do that we started in June. Um, and we've had people do both. Like I just told one woman, her name's Judith, and she's been working on a memoir for a long time. And she said, "Should I take this course?" And I said, "No," because I know that she's already on track with how what she wants to do, and she does want new skills, but she doesn't want to be taken off the track of her project at the moment. So again, any question that people would like to ask more of and or DM me or anything, I'd be happy to. Abby, was that enough? Did that help answer that question? Okay, thanks for thumbs up. Helen says, how much does it cost? That's in the link I just posted, and then I'll explain the coupon in a minute. Kate is pasting a question earlier. Sorry. Do the structures in addition to Rob Clow ever offer shorter courses on their focus topic? The part I'm really stuck with is Lauren. We're finishing, and I would love to dive into a focus course ASAP. That's a great question. I'm sorry I didn't see it. We'd love SAW to be there someday where we're a little larger and can like do a multiplicity of different kinds of large scale and small scale courses. But right now we can't do that. And it's also not just about the size of SAW, it's also about Lauren's availability, for instance. It's kind of like herding cats sometimes to make sure everybody's ready for the fourth quarter, all the teachers. We do offer a lot of courses and throughout the year. I'm gonna post just our main website in the chat here. And they vary. And again, a lot of times they vary based on teacher availability. I would love to. Lauren is actually a great friend of mine. I think she's one of the great comics instructors. I think she's a great talent, and I'd love to get her. I'm always trying to get her more involved with SAW, but she's literally been on a book deadline. I'm not kidding, for about 25 years. Like she signed a contract for a book that she's trying to finish. I think she said by December this year, but I think she signed a contract for it in like 2002 or something. And only in the past 2 or 3 years has she really, really, really been working on it. So in particular, Lauren at the moment is kind of inaccessible. But when she finishes that book, if she ever does, I'm hoping to get her more involved with things like that. So the short answer is right now we don't break them up, but the long answer is I'm hoping that SAW gets there someday and that we have more things like that. I hope that's an okay answer. Great. Okay. So again, I wanted to tell you that if again, I'll put this. I'll send you all an email. I'm going to share my screen one last time. I'll show you how. But I'll send you all an email. But what I want to do is go to this. I'm going to invite you. I'm going to copy this link. I'm going to put this in the chat. That will lead you to the overview that I just shared with you, this whole bunch of stuff. As I said, the usual price is $29.99. We're giving 20% off right now for people who are here. It's complicated. That's because software isn't our friend. But if you click the link, this link, and I'll put this in the chat, and you'll have like a week to do this if you are interested. If you click this link, oops, and select the 12-month price, you get 20% off and don't start until September. Okay, so I just in the chat also put how that works out this, but it's also here as well. And there's a little bit of time for that. And also I'll stop sharing. I'm very accessible. You can message me either in the Mighty Network that some of you are already familiar with, or email. If you email hello@Sequential Artist Workshop, I'll get it. If you email Tom@Sequential Artist Workshop, I'll get it. There's a lot of ways to reach me, not Twitter. Sean asks one more question. I'm super interested, but not sure if I'll be able to do it. Will it start next September? Does the program ever skip a year? We've never skipped a year. Yeah, I didn't mention that at first, but in fact, we've been doing this since 2012, but we didn't take it online until 20, as an entire year-long course, we didn't take it online until 2020. And it wasn't a coincidence. I mean, it was a coincidence that it timed with the pandemic. We were planning on bringing it in 2020 anyway. Long story short is that we do it every year, and we've been doing it since 2012. So I don't see any reason to believe that we'll skip a year. I'm never an optimist when it comes to the future, but I think we'll be here next year, and I think we'll start in September every year. I started this school as an affordable alternative to comic schools and art schools in general, which have gotten way out of control price-wise, like a lot of things in the higher education culture and economy. And so that was my plan all along when I started it in 2012, was to have this alternative option for people that wanted to go to art school but couldn't. And if you'll indulge me for one more moment, I'll show you the here. And so our first, there she is. Our first student ever was Sally Cantorino, and she literally was in some ways the person I created the school for. She was in some of my classes in New York City at SVA as a teenager, and she was immensely talented. And when it came time for her to go to college, she and her family couldn't afford to go to SVA, which is where they really wanted to go, which is where I taught. And I was like, this is crazy that somebody as talented and brilliant as Sally can't go to the school that would make her a great artist. And so I kept in contact with her, and I said, and a year or two later, I think she got her associate's degree. I said, a year or two later, I said, Sally, I'm starting a school. It's in Florida, and I want you to be the first student. And she said, yeah. and now she is on the Simon & Schuster website. She's got a career that she's really proud of. I'm really tearing up just thinking about her. So sorry, that's my little indulgence thing, just that we do this for those reasons, and every year we start in September. Anyway, I miss Sally. I gotta send her a message. Sally. Okay. Any other questions? If there's not, we did well. I got us really right about an hour. I really appreciate you all being here. Jen says, when I go to sign up, I don't see a 12-month option when I follow the link you posted. Yeah, I'll share my screen. If anyone wants to bow out, you are welcome to, but it is here. This one, it says June year-long YLP stands for year-long program. That one there. If you can see that there, 12 times 279. If you click that, oh, but my coupon didn't work. Let's go back. So this coupon should work. Start there, 12 times 279. Oh, there it is. So it's already included. For 100% off for the first 3 months. Total due today, 0. You start paying in 3 months. You start paying July, August, September 18th, your first payment would come. So that's where it is. I hope that answered that question. And I've been fielding a few questions in the direct messages where people are saying, what is that link again? So feel free to just find out or send me a message. Steve says, will we have access to the recording? Yes. as soon as it's processed by Zoom and all that stuff. And probably tomorrow I'll post a link to, I'll post the links that I posted in the chat to the presentation I just gave, but as well as the recording. And the PDF and stuff like that. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll write that down. So yeah. He says, thank you. If I'm missing any questions, now's a good time to let me know. Arthur says, thanks. Steve says, thanks. Okay, great. It sounds like we're good. Thank you so much. Seriously, if you have additional questions, email me. You can even find me Friday nights, our free Friday night workshop, if you don't already know those. I know Eli knows those. Hi, Eli. Um, you can, direct message me during that, even though I'm usually busy during those, but I'm pretty easy to find, and we're happy to help you out. And I hope if you don't sign up, I hope those 18 takeaways get you going farther along. And have a good night, everybody, or a good morning, as Nikki in Nikki's case. And everybody, thanks so much. Thanks for being here, and thanks for joining. Bye.